This is what people don't realise, though, that there's a whole different world where we just start these recordings and I've got no clue what's going to happen here.
Throw you into it. I spoke to you in 3 days and we're like, it's live.
Yes, here we go.
Is that video last week that we did, last week's episode, that just had my brain spinning. So obviously we touched Remotion, and then I just got so lost in like basically trying to figure out, well, how do we take this kind of concept and where can it go? And during obviously the video, we were talking about this idea of like, faceless channels and, blah, 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 blah. And then I feel like it was maybe Wednesday or something. I went down such a rabbit hole. I was literally just like in the middle of the day, I think I was lying down. And I was like, there's got to be a way. There's got to be a way. There's got to be a way. And it was just like, when it's in my head, I at least have to see if it's possible. Because, at the end of the day, you have a few things happening at the same time. You have a video editor that can kind of edit itself now, by you kind of programmatically doing it. And we were just doing it inside Terminal. But then I just had a quick Google. I was like, well, can't you technically run this stuff? Like if I had a pipeline running on a website, for example, could it just output a video for me? Could it create a video for me? And it was like, yes. I was like, okay. And I started stitching things together. I was like, all right, well, let's first of all just start from the very top. I watched so many YouTube videos around, how people find niches, where these type of videos are, because what's interesting is what we see on our YouTube when we open up our app is obviously the algorithm that's conditioned to us, right? But there's just like unlimited amount of worlds that exist where there are like, different types of niches, different types of videos. And some of the type of videos that just get like insane amount of views that I wouldn't even consider myself watching. And then I watched them and this is where the next aha moment happened. They were like just terrible visuals. They got millions of views, but they're sort of like these explainer type of videos. And there's some just, random just AI voiceover and like stick man figure around the screen. And these things are just raking it in. And then I went down a further rabbit hole again, like, watching a ton of YouTube videos around like, how people find these type of things, and slowly started stitching it together. And I've been very reluctant about sharing this. And so I'm kind of just throwing myself into it because I'm like, I know that me sharing this is obviously the type of thing that we want to be doing, because throughout my process of building there, like we did with directories, there's always a moment where it's like, oh, I want to keep it to myself. It's too juicy, But then I realized there's always another cool thing happening. And so what, like at the end of the day, if people want to build, do this as well. But it's just too juicy just not to share, really, isn't it?
You got me interested in what this could possibly be. I've seen some stuff on X over the weekend that Replit's just added in around, similar to what Remotion is, but Replit have done their own version. But I know that you've had a lot of success with Remotion, so I'm guessing you've branched off Remotion with what this is going to be, right? Or is this completely new?
Yeah. Oh, we are deep in it right now. I'm talking like just lost. This isn't mine, by the way, but just an example of sort of a channel. I've got like a burner YouTube account now, which has just got the most random videos on the feed now. You'll see it. Like some of these don't even make sense. Like, all these type of videos. You can see all these viral type of videos, how to make animated stickman and, for example, how the US president travels at 13 million views, and then there's this app, plugin, which I already knew about before, but it's called vidIQ. And basically the kind of feature here that's most interesting is you see this sort of like purple little thing here. It tells you that is kind of like an outlier score. So like how did that video perform in comparison to other videos either in its niche or on its channel? So what you want to look for is sort of these like 100x type outliers, a bit like this. It's like a 100x outlier. This is a 100x outlier. Well, that's random, that's just music, but trying to find like actual type of ones. Here, I grew a mango tree from seed and filmed it for a year, 100x outlier. So you see the examples, like what languages sound like to foreigners, etc. There's many of these type of things. And so I was like, okay, well, again, like, I'm going to walk you through a little bit of my thinking, and feel free to jump in at any point because it will be a bit of a rant of me explaining it. Sort of started from, let's really, really, really get scientific, and imagine, first of all, I was speaking to my brother earlier on because he was asking me how he can create sort of these carousels that perform really well on his Instagram, but like automated. And this was kind of the same type of thinking, which is effectively break it down from a level of the entire human process. And I think that's really important because there's so many verticals that, you know, many viewers will operate in, you will operate in, I operate in, that we understand so well on just a you know, manual labor perspective, you know. And video production is one of those ones that I'm very familiar with, because obviously, you know, we do it here on this channel and I've done it for many years, and so I'm able to understand all the stages that are involved, right? And so then you start thinking, okay, well, if we look at, let's say we have a set of this content, the first question is, well, how can I start with this type of data and information and turn it into videos that we are almost guaranteed will perform, right? Let's just start there. Like, you know, that's a big ask to go from, like, you know, YouTube's data set through to, like, you know, actual content that will work.
Sure.
And then along the line, obviously, we have different parts of the pipeline. So that, you know, might have a research process. You might have a process of generating the title, the thumbnail, the script for a video, the assets, and so many question marks, right? And of course, one of the biggest things being, how do you do it in a cost-effective way? Because if you're taking some of these videos out, look, this is like an 11-minute video, and there's so many scenes in it. How are you taking a video like that? And I mean, what are you going through Nano Banana and generating like 100 images, you know, which is going to cost you like $15 for argument's sake, which isn't a lot, obviously, but still, it's like a lot of API calls. Are we then like animating these using Kling? Like, what are we doing? How are we getting there? And so I just started playing around a lot, and what we ended up with was sort of like this pipeline over here, which I'm going to go through in a moment. And so I don't even know how I'm going to talk about it because there's so much going on. But it's very intelligent the way it works, which I think is super cool, right? So first of all, let's start with this. So we have a series of videos. So I'll just pull one up here. Let's take do I have one open? Let's go to these videos here for these channels. And by the way, there's a lot of channels that are only a few months old that are generating like millions and millions of views, you know, on their videos. They're not old channels. So, and it clearly, look, this is a Faceless channel. Like, it doesn't have to be something that have to be associated to. It's clearly not visually the most attractive, but you're talking about 3.6 million, 1.7 million, 1.5 million, 1.4 million, 1.2 million, all the way down, you know, 215K, 215K. And literally, that financial facts that are totally incorrect. Mind-bending paradoxes. Every way to reprogram your brain. Simply explaining complex manipulation techniques. You know, all of these things. And there's sometimes even like repeat certain concepts, like this one, every manipulation technique and how to combat it, which is similar to the other one just down there. But this one got 1.7 million views. That was 6 months ago. And this one here was 1 month ago. So obviously try to do the same style again, but hit 400K views. It was still obviously great. But and when you open one up, let's just do this manipulation one. You can see the style here. I have
creating video content is easy because I use.
Can you hear the audio, by the way?
Yeah.
All right, cool. Yeah, I've got, obviously I'm not on premium on this one, but you can see it.
Like, sometimes it's quiet, subtle. Like, one knows what it is and how they are being affected by it. Let me explain. Gaslighting is when someone messes with your sense of reality. It doesn't always.
So what you really here have is a structure of almost like a minute 15, minute and a half, or roughly, of each segment of maybe like 8 to 10 concepts. That's all it is, and it's just running through the concepts. And you just go straight into them. What it does is like at the start of each one, it will just like mention it, it will explain it, and it will just go into the actual concept. And it has obviously stick command animations and things like that. Now, again, like one of the things I'd you know, I've been a student of, like, you know, the Faceless YouTube world for the last, you know, 5 days. So I'm going to try act like an expert, but I'm really not. There was an interesting thing that what guy was saying, that you can literally just copy patterns that other channels have, but just do it better. You know, like if you just do it better, you have a chance of doing that. And so that's where I started thinking, okay, well, we can do better visuals, we can do better audio. I'm sure we can do better edits. And then, you know, of course we can do it automatically, because a lot of this process right now, no doubt, they're doing manually, having to generate every image, put it into Premiere Pro, cut and stitch everything together. But again, we have Remotion now, which allows us to assemble these things without doing anything. And so this was an example of something like a video, and there's many of them. And so what I did is, first thing was, well, how can I now capture everything about this video? So that's when I started opening up Claude Code. So I speak to Claude Code, and I've called it Choudhry right now. It's nothing special. But we have this thing here called references. And so the idea is for me to create a reference library of, I've only got a few here that I've been adding, of videos that I can see are like outliers, right? So, you know, all of these videos have some sort of like, you know, strong score, or are just interesting videos that we want to understand better. And we're capturing everything from that video, from every single bit, the transcript, how many views they had, what the engagement's like, the outlier score from vidIQ is scraping, the engagement score. And by the way, there's no API for vidIQ or anything like this. I'll show you in a minute how I did it. The chapters, the exact transcript down to a T, so we actually understand what was written, the type of pace it has, the duration for each section, everything. And so imagine now, this is, whatever, maybe like, 20 odd examples or 19 examples, but imagine now you got, 1,000 examples. What you're really doing here, kind of step one, it comes back to the point I made at the very start, which was, well, how do we create that engine that before we even start creating a video, at the very least understands what makes a good video, right? Yeah. And so this is what we're trying to create here is our own database and library of the best performing videos. Well, how do we capture the data? That's where our famous Chrome extension technique comes into it, where you can just go onto this page, and I've got a Chrome extension here, where I can just hit capture. And now in a second, it's going to capture that video, store it to my database now with all of that data that I've just explained to you. So that will just come in here now. There you go. The video will be added here. So let me just up, where are we? Should be added date somewhere. Yeah, created at descending. So we'll see that one that we just captured now will be up top, every manipulation technique. And you can see now all the data from that video is captured, the engagement, the outlier score and everything, which makes a big impact in how we later on analyze what type of videos to create. And what that Chrome extension is doing is literally fetching all the data on this page. I'll kind of right clicked here and clicked inspect to then go in here and find the exact class that is calling this data, and then the Chrome extension goes and just immediately fetches all that information. So it's just like an intelligent way of basically capturing all this information and creating your own database. So that's, let's say, step one, a series of references. Then we have reference chunks, which effectively what it does, it breaks these references down into smaller chunks to understand specifically what's going on in different steps of the video. So it's a very, very, sophisticated sort of system there. And then what we want to think about is, okay, well, you have that, and then what do we do with that? So
hang on.
No,
before we get into this stuff, there's a few questions I want to ask you, because this bit will lead quite nicely in. Just from 5 days of you exploring this, the trends that you've seen that have been captured best, is there any indications that you've found from eye level, so like you eyeballing up videos, understanding why they potentially could perform, that then allowed you to then build this model? So for example, you saw a consistent pattern with some videos that were going, right, that's bringing a lot of views, and there's a clear indication as to why, hence why they were the ones that you then thought, right, we're going to inspect those pages, we're going to add them into the Superbase files.
Yeah, so mainly the main thing was for that outlier score sort of thing. It was like, what are the ones that performing? And I was kind of being agnostic about the type of video, right? So you have some videos that are those list type of videos I showed you just now. Some of them are like quizzes, that people watch, and it'll be like a quiz and it comes up and it says, this or that. And just like a ticker going along, and you're just sort of interacting with them. By the way, my kids love those type of videos. So I'm keen to get into those as well. So it's almost like a gamified YouTube video, right? And so I was just more so just grabbing these based on just things that were coming up that I thought interesting. I was looking at the channel itself to see, okay, how old is it? Because a lot of these channels are 2, 3, 4 months old, but garnering millions and millions of views and making a lot of revenue. And so that became interesting. And so I started there. And then, again, every video, if you actually just break it down on a edit level, doesn't matter what type of video it is, whether it's a quiz or explainer video or storyline or wherever, they all require visuals. They all require, cuts. They all require audio. So those were things that I was like, let me just first figure out the overall framework and then slowly specify it to a specific type of video, right? Which is kind of, you can see here, it's starting to come together now. I've just today added multi-explainer, which is these explainer type of videos. That's why before the call I was saying to you, I just need to see if this works. But now I'm going to start, actually setting those up. And I mean, over time I could, have 10 different channels and each one runs a different type of workflow, Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, totally. The reason why I asked the question is there's two outliers that I've always found that perform really well with this kind of format. So again, like we said at the start of the call, I had no clue we were going to talk about this today. So it's like me pulling out the old memory bank of the back of my brain right now. But I certainly know the best YouTube videos that perform very, very well are the ones where the title is alluding to something, but the thumbnail doesn't give the answer away. So when people go for that like processing eyeball check of when they're going through YouTube what to go and watch, if they can get the answer from the thumbnail, they won't watch the video. Whereas if they can kind of get like hooked in by the title, it's got a huge increased rate of people clicking onto it. So it kind of leads into when you're going through those YouTube videos earlier on, those thumbnails are quite confusing at the eye level. So therefore, like the title, let's think of one of the titles that's there, explaining basic financial concepts you should. And because it cuts off, you're like a little bit curious as to what's going on here kind of stuff. Yeah. But the thumbnail doesn't actually give away the principle of what's going on, which is really interesting.
There's something in that which is interesting, which is, being able to, again, this is one of the things I was just working on now. So we'll get to these examples because we've got a working example of these. But where I kind of came from that school of thought, and I was like, well, again, if something's working, let's try it. Like if there's a reason that for whatever reason you come across a YouTube video and it's got like drug effects explained, like 6 images, there's something maybe curiosity led in that in itself. It's making people want to click on it. Which I found pretty interesting. So yeah, I right now it's like just test and play. Like, does it clearly not every thumbnail has to be a Mr. Beast type of thumbnail.
Absolutely.
Which could just be a style, by the way. There could be another style that maybe for some videos that works. And I kind of like, first of all, the next step that came into my mind was, okay, well, generating audio, generally speaking, should be pretty straightforward. It's the 11 Labs API call. We'll get Claude to write a script, send it to 11 Labs, get the audio back. That's like pretty straightforward. But then the interesting part here became, okay, well, if you look at if I'm the one creating a video, I'm actually doing multiple things at the same time, right? I'm, like I said, researching the information, gathering that data. I'm then going and getting my assets. If I need images, videos, if I go into Figma and create things, whatever it is, I'm doing that manually. Maybe I need to download some videos online and go and do that. But go and generate the audio or record the audio. That's a part of the process. There are all these like steps involved. And then you kind of want to figure out, well, normally inside your brain and using your eyes, you will start to understand where things cut, how things chop up, what shows where. But there's not actually a way really that AI can just do that, right? Because what you're saying here is there's just a series of things and you can't just say to it, figure out how to do it. And this comes back a lot to that sort of, bigger leaving agents to figure it out conversation, aka the open claw world, versus a world of spending some time and being very thoughtful and specific about what you're trying to create, and then actually producing that exact pipeline that gets you the result. Because again, you're emulating something that you're very attuned with on a manual level, and you're able to like really get in the nitty gritty and be like specific and be curious. And so you could just take the image example as a good example, and we can maybe start there because it's quite compelling. Like I said, first of all, I was like, well, if you are going to create multiple scenes in a video, look, we want to have a video that's 10 minutes long, right? And you want it to cut every 3 to 5 seconds. That's a lot of videos, a lot of images we need to generate. And so first of all, I just sat with Claude in the Claude app, not even Claude Code, and just said to her, look, write me a prompt, create me a scene or said thing. And then did it, great. I'm going to have to do a lot of these to make up the video. And I started to think, I speak to Claude, I was like, well, where are there interesting ways that I can sort of create these, create visuals, but have them actually sort of like tell multiple parts of a story in one image. What are interesting ways we can do that? And so one of the ways that it came back with, I can actually probably pull up my Claude chat. Let's see, we might have it here. I'll show you some examples. So okay. Look how long this chat is.
Yeah, you've been in the weeds with it.
Yeah, I don't know where I started. So I started with this infinite zoom idea. And so a bit like this. So you can see here that really you've got, this is like sort of the first example.
Yes.
Painting. So the idea was, could we have a video that starts zoomed in, because you can control the camera with remotion. So can we start super zoomed into the center, and then can we somehow connect with the audio to understand because 11 Labs gives us a word level time code, to then connect that up with remotion for it to understand that, okay, well, by the time we get to said part of the story, we're clearly showing the second ring. And so time the zoom accordingly. So as the story narrates, the visuals are showing themselves and then just expand out. So you're seeing the story be built as you're watching it, right? Which could be an interesting visual, which I still think is an interesting example. I'll give you some more examples, because then I started saying, okay, well, actually make it work for, like, just again, different styles here. So sort of the Apple story, visuals were terrible, but the concept was there around these rings. Then we got something a bit like this,
Oh,
and so you kind of
wow.
get a picture here. And what my vision really, and this is just me, the perfection in me. And I think the interesting thing with a lot of these videos is you don't have to be perfect, because clearly a lot of them are just stick men or whatever, but I'm like just really keen to try and make it perfect. I want it to be something that's, actually, it's more the feat of it. Like, we want it to be cool. And one of those examples was, well, this would only take up a certain part of the story, because this won't be a 10-minute video. That's going to be a very slow zoom. So now what you want to think about is, okay, well, concept number one is this: one image, multiple parts of a story. And what we're saying there is, instead of generating multiple images, this could be the equivalent of, let's say, 10, 15 API calls to Nano Banana. Instead of, what I'm saying is, let me pay 15 cents once, but give me the value of 10 or 15. Does that make sense?
Totally.
Because we're kind of, packing it all into one image. But then what you want is, well, this image ends. So how do we then lay it into the second image? If we just cross-cut it into another image, that defeats the whole purpose. So how do we have it like an endless zoom, that like you're just constantly coming out of? And then we started to get creative, and then, it gave me some ideas, and it said, why don't we think about kind of using Nano Banana Edit to kind of do a picture in a picture?
Nice.
And so the second image somehow places the first image inside it, and then the second image zoom is matched with the end state of that overall first image, right?
Yes.
And then so this is a good example. So you have this scene here, opening scene, let's say, and then look,
I was gonna say, that's a hell of a prompt. When these people talk about how you have to have the perfect prompt, look at that as proof for you.
That's so funny. And like, because this is what it did, look, it put the image in a frame for the second scene. So
Yeah, I love
now that moment was me realizing that, oh my goodness, we can actually have multiple of these stitched together, where we're going from one image, then the second image, inputting the first image, and it can create this continuous zoom effect. And so you're coming out of the first image and you're into a scene of the Apple studio, but it's stitched together in a way that's like, it looks seamless, right?
Yeah.
Oh my, this is it.
Your claw's nice to you.
Yeah, very nice of me. Anyway, we'll keep going, and then basically we start get a bit more, how do we do it with these circles, and start to put them in frames, like that, but that didn't look good. And then what else did we do? We started to get to
There's a lot of thoughts racing through my mind at just like watching these images keep improving. Well, I was gonna say, like, so it kind of links with if your YouTube name or the name of this content was called like something unlocks, right? Like, it could always cut to a key, like going into a key holder, and then like when you turn it, you know how it unlocks. You can see like the mechanism behind the scenes of unlocking. It unlocks into that next bit, so then all of a sudden the whole thing rotates around. It goes into the next video. Rotates around, goes into the next video. Do you know how you got it in that circle format right now in those little like subsections? It's almost like how a Rubik's cube would move around.
Yeah, that's intelligent.
It shifts, moves back into that next place. I like this is the if when people come up with their ideas for these accounts and stuff, if you can find, like, that's why the name doesn't have to actually prevail and link to the content itself. If you thought of a pattern which could be even like crime scenes, like that's another perfect one. You know those like detective boards where it has the red strings and the pins everywhere. It can just move perfectly through, like, as if it was a crime scene, like deep diving into the behind the scenes work.
That's the next thing we tried. So then the next thing,
no way.
Ceramic thing. So I was like, well, let's go left to right, and that will bring me on to what I share in a moment, where we got to. So this is kind of that. You can see that here: scene 1, scene 2, scene 3, scene 4.
Nice.
And so this is a bit more of an skeleton evolution of the concept that we end up, getting to. And so the idea here was, first of all, again, very important, just to look at this and understand that we're getting 14 scenes in one image. Right. So this is where the aha moment started to sort of happen, which was like, okay, well, it doesn't really matter if we're doing it as these sort of, forever rings, or if we're doing it in stages. It was like, well, how can we get the biggest size that Nano Banana creates, which is a 21:9 format, which is this wide format, like a panoramic format, which means you have a lot of real estate now. And so the question then became after this was, well, how many 16:9 screens can we fit in one 21:9 image? And if we can do that, we can then basically have multiple scenes in one image, like multiple steps. So effectively, even multiple keyframes. You could have a guy like this, and then picking up a drink, and then going over here. It could just be, character consistency going throughout. And then again, coming back to the programmatic side, which was, the amazing thing here was, well, obviously I know Claude Code can help me figure a way to crop those images out. So if we do that, we can still very effectively, because we can create 4K images, we can go and crop each of those out so it looks like they're independent images. So we create one grid and then multiple images from that we then crop out. And so that's how we started we started with like a blockbuster concept. This is where we couldn't get the sizing quite right, but you see the example here. And then we got to an example of where did we get to? So it's coming up now. So like, yeah, this was that one. So it was like this now. So you can start to see a grid of 6 fits nicely. So these are like 6 16:9 images. So we can tell a story now in, basically like a storyboard. And if we just crop each one of these out and made them the screen, you could just cut however often you wanted between each one. That make sense?
Nice. Yeah, definitely.
So that was
when I saw you post this on X, I thought this was going to be a comic book thing. So seeing this how it is now, I'm like, oh no, this is so much better than a comic book.
Well, then you could do the same thing with thumbnails. So I was like, well, generate me 4 thumbnails. So now I could press a button and get 4 thumbnails in one API call as well, right? So now I can pick which thumbnail I want, Now, first of all, the reason this is, again, that's so crazy is because everything that I'm going to go through and I'm showing you already, it proves a couple things. First of all, this idea of a rapper, you've heard this argument so often, which is, oh, just a rapper, just a rapper, just a rapper. You're seeing here, just in this long thread, the process of, before I've even got into Claude Code, how much conversation, dialogue, iterating, curiosity is going on to figure out one piece of the puzzle, right? Which is, how do we generate multiple images at once? We haven't even got to the image style or anything yet. It's just that. And then we're going off in different directions. So I'm like, okay, let me just play with thumbnails for a minute, and then let me come back because that's not important yet. And then we go back to our normal, frames workflow. But again, if you just take this element, let's say this is just one tiny part, which is generating the frames for each scene. You then multiply that by the number of scenes. You then want to figure out a way to cut it together, add the audio, all these levels that come in. And if you wrap all of that inside a product, you start to understand where products have value. So if I was to turn this into, which I'm reluctant to right now, a product, right, which was like, hey, go and make your own channels, which you could now. People can go in there, and again, that process of minimum input, maximum output, you can put in one input. You don't have to put an input. I have a button now I can press that just says suggest, and it just suggests videos, and it can just run the entire pipeline in about 5 or 10 minutes, and I've got a video at the end of it, So just the fact that you can do all of that becomes productizable on its own, and it just speaks to the power of, it's really worth spending your time drilling in and getting every part of the process very tight. It doesn't have to be beautiful. Like, this is not my UI or anything yet. This is just whatever it spat out, just to get me to get the job done. Later on, I'll start to neaten it up just for my own sake, even if I need to. But if I was to productize it, I'd of course make it nicer. But you want to first build something that is like usable. Anyway, what we ended up getting is effectively, let me see if I've got an example here. Yeah, so let's see what video is this. So then I start speaking to Claude Code and saying, okay, well, let's now start to think about how we stitch things together. So I'll run through the workflow a little bit, and we can see here what's going to go on. So let's say custom cuts, multi-explainer, I can just press suggest. And now what it's going to do is going to look at my library. It's going to understand all the references. It's going to understand the context of what works, what doesn't work. And it's going to give me ideas of videos now. Now, by the way, I've run one example of this. It's not perfect yet because there's micro iterations I want to do, but you'll get a good sense of where we're heading. So you can see here now, it's giving me 10 suggestions. Every type of intelligence explained, every form of government, every dangerous cult, every class of weapon, every mental bias, which this might be a good one. And if I want more, I can click suggest more. But let's say I said every mental bias, yeah? Then what I can do is I can click create list. Now it goes off and does research with Perplexity on that topic. Also goes out and understands, again, the library of content I have and what would work. It then writes that list for me. And it doesn't just write a list for me, it writes a list in a way that builds up the narrative of the video. So one example was, we did every type of prison system, and so the last one would be death row, because it builds up the suspense to like that ultimate one. And again, all of that is baked into the prompting system. So we got multiple Claude API calls happening here and a perplexity call. And these are the items it generates. So it says these are the 9 items: confirmation bias, anchoring bias, planning fallacy, whatever it might be. If I don't like one, I can just hit this refresh button. It will go out and it will replace that and reorganize based on where it needs to sit in, So now it says sunk cost fallacy, for example. And so I can curate the list I want for the video just like this. And then go into, again, the references step just to cross-check against our library of videos. There's 9 videos from that. Again, these are all from me going on here and pressing capture. That it says, okay, here are 9 videos that are performing well, that we think like 100x outlier, whatever, percentage matches them. And it takes all that into consideration when it writes its script. Now it'll go off and it'll write its script. So there you go. You can see the script being written now.
Fine.
And here's the crazy stuff. Now, where the images get really interesting is there's a few things going on. One, we've got the actual main kind of image we're generating that'll be chopped into different scenes, right? So first of all, we have a script. We have multiple directors here. So imagine like an actual director, again, mimicking what a person would really do. A director sits there and says, okay, here's a script. Now, while I'm creating the script, there's a few things I need to define. I need to define, because there are going to be multiple Nano Banana API calls, which means that every single API call to Nano Banana has no reference. It's not like Claude, where it's a chat system. It's a brand new image. And so there are definitions it has to set. It has to set the character definitions. Who are the characters that are going to play a role throughout the story? Who are they? What do they look like? What are the descriptions? How do we do that? It then writes descriptions about them. So you can see here the character's description. It will then go, and later on you'll see in a minute, after do a script and it creates assets, the first thing it will do is it'll go and generate a character profiles, basically, with Nano Banana. And it actually creates images. So I'll give you an example for a video I just did. I think it was this one here. So you can see if I go to characters, a few characters, you can see this, like character 1 is this guy,
Really
so
cool.
It generates a character. There's character B, character C, D, don't know what E is, maybe we missed one. But you can see here, all these characters are going to play a role. Now, the reason this is interesting is because we feed these, the reason we generate these first is because when we then call Nano Banana for the stories, we reference the characters, character A, for example, that's going to play a role in maybe sequence 1 and sequence 10. But they're separate API calls. So what we do is, if we know that character A needs to be in there, we send that image for that character as an image reference in the API call. So Nano Banana can see that this is the character, and then it emulates that character into the scene. And so we have visual consistency throughout. And of course, this pipeline becomes interesting because, we're just speaking about the YouTube example here. This is really like the ultimate Teeny Tales type of scenario as well, isn't it? Because you can now have a likeness of your child and it create the whole story and bring in seed dance to animate everything. Like there's every level of this gets more and more insane. What it then does is, I'm going to keep this running so I'll show you an example. So look, it's written the script, great. Now we'll go continue to audio, generate audio. Now, by the way, an important thing here, just from a tutorial perspective for you guys to see, you see how I spoke to Claude in the beginning before I've even built anything. You can see, yes, I'm pressing loads of buttons. I'm pressing a suggest button. I'm pressing getting a title, and I'm seeing the list. I'm then seeing the research here. I'm reading the research. I can see the references. I can see the script. I'm pressing a button to generate audio. Well, the reason I work like this, and even when I built Best Dubai or anything that's now automated, I build it like this so I can see every part of the process myself. So I have full visibility. So if at any point there's something that doesn't quite click, like I listen to audio, I'm like, something's off, I can now drill into that workflow specifically with Claude Code and say, okay, let's work on the audio or let's work on the script because I can see it. I can immediately detect things rather than letting it run for 10 minutes, seeing an output and then being overwhelmed and saying, okay, well, the audio is off here, but actually the audio is connected to the script is generated by Claude. And so there's multiple levels of a pipeline. I need to be able to see all of them so I can then be able to figure out if there's problems to be solved. And then we get a much better system. And so the reason I'm explaining that is because what will eventually happen is I won't be pressing any of these buttons. I will literally, even if I press one button, it will just be me selecting the title of the video and then I go to bed and it will be uploaded on YouTube, and it will just start doing its thing. That's the idea that we're going to get to. So while it's generating the audio,
just to jump in there,
you go on.
just to jump in, if people do this as a practice, this becomes a product, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
I pray to every single person, please do not try and rush the image at references, and do not rush the audio bit. Like that's if anything at all that you've from you watching movies, from you watching TV series, you fall in love with Toy Story because of the characters, you fall in love with Star Wars because of the characters. You don't fall in love half the time because of the storyline. The storyline at the end of it tends to make it 10 times better. But by rushing that stage where you're like, oh, I'm rushing to make videos, it's like you're doing it for the wrong reason. If you are going to spend time making this kind of stuff, have characters that people can fall in love with, or get a sense of, like, I see myself within these characters, because that's what tends to bring people back to your videos in 6, 8, 9, 10 months' time, rather than the first little hype phase when it starts launching itself. And the same with the audio, which is making the audio actually relatable to people, whether it's like a unique voice that no one's ever heard before, or it makes them feel a certain way because they've watched a video beforehand. They were like, oh, that voice was great. It makes me think of so-and-so. Because that's also the other thing, like when people produce content, there's a lot of people copy other people's content in this like personal brand space because they think, oh, they're doing it, so I'm going to copy that directly. You'll only ever become second in that space at best because you're copying someone else's sort of personal branding and their etiquette and what they do. Whereas when it comes to this stuff, if you can get as close as possible to what felt quite relatable beforehand, it's not a case of just copying it word for word. You still have to add your dynamic and your sort of unique angle towards it, but it gives you that kind of like, in a consumer's head, they think to themselves, oh, it makes me think of so-and-so. For example, it makes me think of Toy Story. Then all of a sudden they associate your stuff with Toy Story, which is something that should never be an equation at the end of doors.
Yeah.
But it helps as leverage.
Absolutely right. And by the way, even this quality of the images that I have, they're still informed by the prompts and stuff that you gave me. Remember, you gave me those prompts of Teeny's Hells, that kind of set, that visual. Yeah. So even this style that we've got is quite difficult to get, and Ollie really worked it, and then was kind enough to share it with me. And so that's why we have the quality of images we have, because you worked that prompt. So by the way, we'll let this run, but we'll go through a couple of examples in a minute. So I'll just work you through this. So you can see here again how this is organized. Like we have the ID of the video. And again, this is doing it all by itself. It creates its own folders, stores everything nicely, which is beautiful. The audio is here for that specific script. So let me just see if I can just play this one as an example.
Direct democracy. Around 508 BCE, the citizens of Athens invented something radical. They decided that every free man should get a vote on every single law. No elected representatives, no Senate, no Prime Minister. You showed up to the assembly, you argued, you voted, and majority ruled. That was it. The purest version of people power ever attempted. And it actually worked. For a while. But here's what the history books tend to gloss over.
So it's pretty cool, right? Like he just, and again, you can change out the voices, whatever you want. But it generates like perfect audio. And by the way, you could have you go to 11 Labs, get a friendly, like childish voice, and literally have a whole channel that just like explainers for kids, and just it's just the thing I'm overwhelmed with at the moment, and I've learned a lot throughout the process of like kind of vibe coding and building, is one day at a time, because in my mind, I'm driving, I'm like, oh, I could create a channel about this and this and this. It's like, no. You haven't even created one channel. I haven't even like set anything up yet. Just get the pipeline working, get it tight, and then you can like, tweak it as you go. So I'll just show you a bit of the image stuff because we were just speaking about it. What it then goes off and does is it creates all the grids for that story. So you can imagine now for that story now, this is an example of like one grid, right? Which is like the frames required to tell certain parts of the story. But I knew you'd love this, man. Look how insane it is, Ollie.
What?
Look at this stuff.
Man, that's actually nuts.
It's movie level. And so what's here is we have three types of scenes. We have scenes with characters, we have scenes without characters, and then we have background. So this is an example of a background. Now, there's so much going on. The director, the AI director, the director in there, determines based on the script he's generating which scenes or beats require which type of scene. Like, what do we want there? Do we want a character in there? Do we not? What do we want them to do? It determines that in advance. So all of this is done before we even get to generating an asset. And so that the prompts are very specific for every single frame it generates because it's thought through these. I'll show you a few more of these. They're really cool.
Yeah.
Look at this. This could be like a proper DreamWorks movie, man. The details.
I know. This is actually crazy.
Going on down there, but yeah, it's amazing. See the character consistency? So those are two different API calls. So you can see here, grid 1 is one API call to Nano Banana, and we've got this character here, right? And if you go grid 2, the same character is here because we gave it the character reference because we knew that this character would need to be there. And that character, as I showed you before, was determined in our characters bucket. So I don't know which one he is. That's a character C. So his image is sent to this API call and this API call, and then that's how we get the consistency. So it can carry on a story throughout different frames. So, it goes off and does that. So this is an example of like a background card, right?
I am desperate to see the character that's got his face blurred out. I think it's like character G maybe, or so it might be like grid 7 potentially.
Let's go through them and we see it.
Let's have a look. Even this is cool.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, so nice, man.
Here we go. Yeah, I knew this was going to be cool. Look at this.
But obviously it fits within a narrative of whatever this type of government is. It was a video about different types of government.
I love the boards. So like the policy, the coin that's like half eaten off kind of thing. Yeah, they're really cool.
Yeah, and they fit their own kind of style and theme depending on the story. But even just visuals ideas. So look how clean that is, man. You know. Some concessions you have to make when you're doing like this is that you lose a little bit of detail. I can see a text here because you're really pushing Nano Banana to the limits here. Like for like a very, very effective prompt, you want it to be about 800 characters. We're doing about 7,000 characters per prompt, so we're way beyond the limit it should be. But again, that's pushing to the limits. And then, Claude Code will come back to me and saying, hey, you're like, you're really hitting like a high level of character limits. But I'm like, I'm looking at the visual. I'm happy with it. I don't care. It's fine. Like, keep doing it. Don't worry about it.
Pushing to 14,000.
Yeah. And these are some of these other ones. This
one's that's cool.
But, yeah. So, anyhow, you can see now. And then what it does is, so those are the grids. Now, it then goes, at the same time it generates the grids, every time a grid is generated, it then goes and cuts every single grid into an individual frame. So you can see here now, the individual scenes now of a video, Cool. So now we go further down the chain, we have our individual scenes, and now we can start thinking about, well, how do these stitch together? So now we have our audio generated with word timestamps, we have our individual scenes ready now, and then we have sort of this like a storyboard director that comes in later down the process that says, okay, everything is going to be here. We now know that the edit should be, set up like this, so, 1 minute, at 1 minute 54, cut to this scene, and then cut to this scene. So it's literally an editor sitting there in a seat, trying to plug in where everything goes, which is brilliant. And there's something I just did. So like these videos here, by the way, that we saw earlier, like these ones. So this is where I started messing with thumbnails just before we got on the course. This is version 1. It was like this. So this is our version of a thumbnail like that.
Nice.
So we'll go like zoom into this. So direct democracy is representative democracy, and then we'll go to the video. So we can obviously control the zoom now from Remotion, right? And then I have an example of it without the title on top because we need that for the video. So it does like a different version which we can use in our actual video. But the visuals, again, just brilliant. We probably do need to throw in character consistency if we need to and whatever, but I'm not too pressed about that right now. Monopoly guys here. So these are all the elements in a sense, right? And then we say to, the process to then go and compose the actual video. What I want to do here is, so we went through this process. You can see here, I'll just show you an example. Look, audio generated. This was for the government video I just showed you all the assets for. This is how it came together. The storyboard director, it goes in and look, he marks how many grids he's going to need. So I'm going to need 9 grids, and across the 9 grids, we're going to have 54 frames. It then calculates all the characters it needs, obviously. And then it figures out, okay, grid 1, 6 frames. Here are the frames. Type of shot we have, where there's characters or not, if there's a movement, what it looks like, everything, every single shot and frame is like, built out. And then look, it highlights the whole sequence. We generate the assets, and then we just hit a button called compose, and it's ready for us in Remotion Studio. So this was the version 1 of this type of one. I'll show you the example. I'm not 100% happy with it yet, but it's something that we can see at least. Where is the studio? Is this here? Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's not perfect. I still think there's a lot of gaps, but it gives you a little example, small example.
Direct democracy. Around 508 BCE, the citizens of Athens invented something radical. They decided that every free man should get a vote on every single law. No elected representatives, no Senate, no prime minister. You showed up to the assembly, you argued, you voted, and majority ruled. That was it. The purest version of people power ever attempted. And it actually worked. For a while. But here's what the history books tend to gloss over. Citizen in Athens had a very specific definition. You had to be a free adult male who owned land. That knocked out women, slaves, and foreigners, who together made up the majority of the actual.
So you can see here, I mean, that perfectly times a cut with the image and the text. So you get all of those coming together.
Elected representatives, no Senate, no prime minister. You showed up to the assembly, you argued, you voted, and majority ruled.
Yeah, when you scrub on remotion like this, it goes out of sync. But when you render it, it's all in sync. But you can see here, like, example of a background card.
You argued, you voted, and majority ruled.
You know?
That was it.
So it still looks nice, like with the background scenes, you know, because it changed. It also automatically understands whether it should be light mode text or dark mode text, and then conditions it accordingly. And you can see it just sort of cuts through the entire every type of government. You know, again, like here, very nice. And you can see down here, like, so these are all the cuts. And again, you know, just bearing in mind, I did none of this manually. Like all of it, this entire sequence, every single cut here. This is a how long? Maybe a 10-minute video. The entire 10-minute video is cut by itself using AI. And so there are gripes here for me. Like obviously some sequences are too long. The frames are holding for too long. Maybe need to be a bit more choppy. Even though I showed my wife an example of a video yesterday, and she actually really enjoyed watching a video, and she didn't even care about the length of the scene. She's like, oh, this is really interesting content. Watching the captions, I'm understanding the thing, and the visuals are like, almost like a background thing. Whereas for me, it's like, no, the visuals need to be moving, something needs to be going on. So version one of me creating these videos might be me just throwing something out there and just seeing, okay, let's just put it out, you know, as it is and see. And then maybe over time we can do like, you know, add motion to it, add videos. Because I did play around with something earlier. In what model did I use? I think it was there's a new video model.
See dance?
No, it was another one recently added.
Is it one of the Kling ones, or is it a
No,
completely
it was.
new
I
one?
hadn't even heard of it before. It was it recently. What did I last use? Marquee video models. I know the name when I see it. Views or new. Let me type in. What did I? Can I see somewhere what I ran? Recent history. Nana banana.
That video concept, you can definitely. I mean, like for you, I know you're halfway through even building this out, so it's incredible that it's got to this stage at the minute in time. But you take a protocol or a process which is each frame is that 3-second max or 4 or 5 second max clip radius, which is the kind of the thing that every young person and old person right now needs. The dopamine hits when they're watching content. It's the hooky kind of stuff that makes people stay and then just watch their calls, because no sequence is too long for them to think about, can I click off or not yet? It's like, it's happening so fast. They're like, I'm stuck in this cycle of watching.
Yeah.
And then even like sound effects as well. Like there'll be a stage like V2, V3 where the images don't stay static. They'll stay into, there'll be motion or such of using a cling.
So this example of what I'm about to show you, where I took a grid and then look what it turns into.
Oh, damn. Okay, we're here then. We're here. We've landed. Nah, that's disgusting.
This is crazy.
That's disgusting. That's disgusting. That actually needs to be the thing.
It's mad. Yeah, and that's as soon as I saw this, I was like, ah. So basically, this cost 77 cents for 6 scenes, which is okay. By the way, a huge market in this, which is going to be very low cost and effective to do, is reels and shorts. You know, so you can really like that's a avenue that is so doable with this type of stuff, going into the reels and shorts arena and having programmatic videos and channels just being built. I think it's almost like it's the reason it absolutely just does my brain in is because like Ollie, it's been not even 30 days or whatever since we did coloring page and the best to buy, and then we redid 5-day sprint with a new builder and this and that, and then now we're into this. It's like and they're all incredible products. Like really, they are. I know I built them, and I'm saying that, but I just objectively they are. Like they're all standalone, great things, but they require time and focus. And so even for me, it's like, I don't want to just keep getting excited about the next cool thing, but at the same time, when I feel like this is a version of like compounding your skills, because all this type of stuff I'm doing here was like, okay, well, this can play a role in how I do marketing in other areas. And I've been speaking that for a while, is how do we do automated marketing? So we're doing it in 5-day sprint now with a lot of the idea generation, daily emails that just runs by itself. Is there a version of video pipelines that run like that, and so this is where you kind of become in a lot of ways like a lab. It's like, what does this lab look like that we have, where we're like, all right, and this is really up your alley. It's like, hey, Ollie, let's take this creative video, entire, pipeline. I'm there setting up, building it all, but really, like, the brains that you have can turn around and say, okay, well, here's an avenue. We experiment here, experiment there, and then you kind of lead into whichever one's work. So
100,000,000%.
It's just super cool, man. So, okay, that's like future. We could build in videos. I say future, I might do it by 6 p.m. today, but
yeah, I feel so, yeah. Time's ticking.
Yeah, but a video example. So I want to do this example because it works a lot faster. There's another version of video type, which is just a default video, right? So where we can just put in any topic and generate a video. So I want you to give me an example of a video, like, think about it.
Perfect. I've been thinking about this whilst we've been recording, so it's good. I don't know how we word it. The process of when a young person goes to university and they've got to learn what to go and do. So, for example, how to use the dishwasher, how to use the washing machine, how to go and do different bits and bobs. I don't know how we word this, but it's because I've seen content that there's one person in particular that's like it's a really, really cool sentiment of what they've done, but they didn't grow up with a father figure, so they started creating YouTube videos of like what their dad would have taught them as a child. So it's like, how to then go and do this, how to climb trees, how to go and do these things, like all 30-second videos, but they're just incredible.
Oh, flipping heck. It also, what I get to appreciate and admire more and more is your ideas and you are limited to your, like I said earlier, that the algorithm version of YouTube is a great physical representation of how our brains also are. Our brains work algorithmically based on the context of the world that we've absorbed. So an idea like what you're saying, I could maybe spend 50 years of my entire lifetime and never be like, oh, that's an interesting angle. But as soon as you let in and absorb different people's perspectives and ideas, that's what, by the way, I found so interesting about going through YouTube in this way I did, which was, hey, this is like so much other stuff that is out there, which just sounds so obvious and basic, but it's true. There are so many different life forms, so many different types of people experiencing the world, seeing different things, different algorithms. Like my wife sometimes watches, there's a huge trend of like these soothing Japanese day in the life or Korean day in the life things, where like it's basically just, it's a bit like video ASMR, where like you'll have it on in the background and it's the lady's face is never in it. It's always like, okay, so she's waking up in the morning, she pours hot water, and so you hear the hot water pouring, and then she put a tea bag in, you literally hear her tearing tea bag, putting it in every single part of it through to her going to sleep at night, but it's like a 15-minute video of these clips, but so aesthetic. Like she got the most beautiful house, the cleanest environment. And it's funny because she was playing this stuff and I was taking the mick out of it at the start. And then I was like, this is actually pretty cool.
Yeah, but
very soothing.
Yeah, 2 minutes in, you're about to say something, then like you get 8 minutes in, you're like, I'm still watching this thing. How am I still watching this?
I know, that's another great example of like, learning from someone else's perspective, and the things sometimes she'll find interesting, like off the cuff, I'm like, oh, and then I'll find myself like being interested in it as well. I'm like, you know what, that's pretty cool.
No, absolutely.
So does this make sense? The process of when a young person goes to university and has to learn to live on their own?
Yes, perfect. Yeah, 100%.
Okay, so now we'll go off. Let's research our topic. So this is, by the way, this is the pipeline that I started with. So the one I just showed you, I've just taken us all the way there because that pipeline, effectively, I iterated from this pipeline I'm going through over the last 2 hours before the call. So it didn't exist before that. This was like the one I was working with, first. But it's faster because there's less like, API calls and stuff. So it goes and figures out, okay, these are the reference videos are related. So again, you can see here that there's only 3 right now. But like I said, I've only got 20 videos in my library. If I just sit here and just going bang, bang, bang on that capture button, we're really going to get a very, very vast library. Now, in this example, it goes and generates us titles that it thinks will be suitable for this type of video. So it's got us key facts, hooks, statistics, all of that from Perplexity already. So the video and the content is grounded in some sort of truth. Generated as titles. So here, the first one's great. What no one tells you about living alone for the first time.
Wicked.
Or how going to university actually changes. It's not what you think. That's good. Every stage of learning to live alone at university explained. That's good.
Let's do that one. That's so wide. That's like the other ones are really good from like a hook point of view and like a clickbaity kind of angle, but this one will be quite cool just to see the intricacies. Yeah. Do you know what would also be wild, right? Like someone's got to build this as like whether it's an app or it's just a process. ChatGPT ages ago had that thing, well, it still does, where you can open your camera up and you record what's going on in front of you and it'll explain what's going on. So, for example, if you'd never used a washing machine before, you could open it up and then like you could say to it, how do I work this thing? Or I've got a new washing machine, I don't know what it is, I haven't read the instructions. It'll talk you step by step how to use that one process. Can you imagine that if someone made an app, you're going to university and they're like, I've got a new washing machine here, or like it's the first one I ever used this one or this dishwasher or this like... Yeah, can you? But then it comes back in the video format of that branded one.
Well, what I was thinking about as I was dropping the kids to school this morning was like it's going to happen. But imagine when like image generation becomes like real time, video generation becomes real time, and I wouldn't be surprised if that doesn't happen this year. Because only a matter of just compute. And so. Things like that, like, you can literally just, because speed is one of the things. Like right now, look, I'm creating a video. Yes, this is going to be a 6-7 minute video, and fair enough, it will still only take 5 minutes or so to create. So yeah, of course, like a 30-second tutorial, man. Maybe that is just, 2 API calls to Nano Banana, stitched up images, audio layered on top, and maybe within a minute you've got literally a video of anything. Like you're just on demand media. There are so many just like. It is crazy because you have this bias when you're building things where, you're excited about it and it's like the coolest thing and you can convince yourself this is like such a next big thing. But this workflow and process feels so compelling that there's so many use cases of what could be done with a pipeline and a director system like this, right? Like your example is a great example. iOS app, take a picture of something, it understands a product because obviously Google Nano Banana is grounded in truth. Create the exact assets you need, beautiful visuals because the prompts are already in there to look wonderful. Does the audio, you got a tutorial now, and you could have that for anything, anything you want to learn or do, it just, outputs it for you, which would be insane. But yeah, like you could have a on that same token, then alternative use case with that same idea could be the university guy Instagram channel.
Yeah, totally. 100%.
Channel, and it's just daily videos that are just being hammered out 3 a day if you want to, like I'm saying, using a washing machine, washing dishes properly, whatever it might be. Now go and plan our storyboard. So here we got the audio. Shall we leave it for the big reveal? The audio, do you want to listen to it?
Can do. It's good that it's 4 minutes long.
The moment your parents drive away, something shifts. Not dramatically.
By the way, how much does this guy's voice sound like Greg's?
I was literally about to tell you that exact same thing, but I was like, can we say this or not? I was like, that sounds like Greg.
No, it does.
No music swells. Nothing changes visually. The corridor looks the same. Your room looks the same. But you are now entirely responsible for whether you eat today, whether you sleep, whether you show up. Nobody is going to remind you. For most 18-year-olds, this is the first time in their lives that's ever been true. And the thing is, you have no idea how unprepared you actually are, because you've never had to find out. The first week is a performance you're putting on for everyone, including yourself. You go to every social event. You tell people your name and your course and where you're from approximately 40 times. You eat cereal for dinner and call it fine. You stay up until 2 a.m. talking to people you'll never speak to again because the alternative is lying in a room alone, thinking about the fact that you actually have no idea how to do this. Sleep deprivation, cheap alcohol, and a desperate need to seem like you're handling it. That's Freshers Week. And the remarkable thing is, almost everyone around you feels exactly the same way, and nobody says so.
It's quite
Then
brutal.
reality sets in. You don't know how to separate laundry?
So, by the way, in the prompt, so there's a lot of tweaks that have happened to audio, but I noticed a lot of these videos are very direct to the viewer, and it's just interesting in itself because, again, we spoke about this with emails before. Email, and why I love email marketing is like every action that you get is so insightful because it's a true representative of that person's intent. Because if you're on social media, you're scrolling, you're tapping like or commenting, it's actually, you're psychologically, you're thinking about so many other things, virtue signaling, social behaviors, what am I going to look like, should I like, should I not, all these type of things are going on. And so actually the engagement on social media isn't a true representation of like eyeballs to engagement, whereas I feel like emails are, because they're very private interface, like no one sees your emails but you. And so your actions you take are very true, and which is like super, super valuable and insightful for a business. Similarly with YouTube, I feel like that or content like this, I think is very interesting because the person that's watching is watching it for them. You're picking the video. Very rarely do you sit there as a group of people choosing what video to watch. And you are selecting. It's a click and view mechanism with YouTube, isn't it? And so I noticed with a lot of these videos, they are speaking direct to the viewer, and it pulls them in a lot more as well. It's very much like, yeah, am I this? Am I that? Like, what am I going to struggle with? Rather than being like, most people struggle with this is this. It's like you are gonna, which I find interesting. So now we have different directors here. So we have a script director, we have a title director, we have an audio director, we have a storyboard director. And so we just have, again, think of all of these like individual agents. This is literally what an agent is. These are individual agents that will pipe together into one agent that automatically runs the entire workflow. But it's effectively just a series of API calls that are happening. And very, very important to understand that concept because, we're showing you within specific use cases on this YouTube channel and in the community and things like that. But this can work across anything, we're tying together different tools and resources. The cropping thing that the video is doing, that Claude Code is doing, that's like one part of the pipeline. There's so many elements that are at play here, and it's very important to leverage that, man, because there are just infinite ways that you can tie things together. I'm very excited about the video stuff though. That does give me a little tickle.
Yeah, that was very cool.
Yeah, so we have all the productions, we have them, so there's all the videos that I've generated. Everything gets stored nicely, which is great.
Will it be pulling right now as we're going through this process here? Like, will there be a super base that's been created itself and going through that stage?
So as soon as the title is selected at this step, here, then so now every stage of learning will be there. So if we go here, it should be at top already. There. We'll see it, and it tells us status, audio assembled. So it's done the audio. Now when it's on the next step, it will update. So right now it's doing the storyboard direction, so it's still doing that.
Nice.
Yeah, it's done that. So now generate the assets. This is the last step. So it's said to us, okay, we're going to have 8 grids, 48 frames, 3 characters. So it's detailed what they'll look like. And now we're going off to Nano Banana. So now we're going to Nano Banana. We're making API calls. And it's going to start to generate. And so again, like here it should have updated hopefully. There, they're directed. So they've been directed now, and now it's generating assets. Yeah,
it's wild. Yes, it's also actually. So I didn't say something off this call after, which is hilarious. You'll love this. But I was even speaking to a friend of mine the other day, and I was saying before AI came into place, there's like this mutual agreement between everyone. So like if you're a video editor, right, it was like a mutual agreement that no one was going to build anything to automate editing because it's like we can't lose all of our jobs. So we'll just agree to just carry on being as good as we possibly can be, and those people carry on making money. AI then came in, and all the young people were just like, why have you not been doing this for ages? I've just turned 16. Like, why are you not doing this thing? Like, just automate the thing. They're like, I'm just going to go and do it. They just build it. They post it on X and they just go and raise all this money, like somehow raise all this money. And everyone in the editing space is like, hang on a second, does that mean like we're done? But they're like, no, like you're still important. But like these kids just got no clue that like they're just looking at it from face value, just going like, you're spending time on this? Like, why would you do that?
No, exactly. And by the way, like going through these processes, and that's why I've fell in love with AIs so deeply in the most romantic way, is because of an appreciation of how long certain tasks will take. I think I might have said this on the last call, but I'm so glad, I discovered this in my early 30s. I feel like I haven't even hit my prime in terms of like my productivity, my work, and everything. But if I was 75 and AI come out, I'd be like, oh man, like all these ideas in my brain, I can't even, I've got like 10 years to execute. Whereas like now is, you feel, obviously we don't know how long we're going to live anyway, to add a bit of sprinkle of morbid in there. But we at least, feel energized and excited enough to be like, yes, let's go. And it's actually motivated a lot of my lifestyle changes, how much effort I give in terms of my workouts, my diet, because man, I spend sometimes 10, 12, 14 hours on Claude Code, and I'm talking like 5-6 days a week. Sometimes it's relentless, but it's because and I'm not saying everyone should have to do that, but I get such a fun out of it. It's like someone playing golf all day long. It's just the thing. I took the kids for a haircut yesterday. They're both in the chair getting a haircut. I'm on this, just building this video generator, just sitting there, and I'd also get to come home and show them, and they get to see it and be excited about it. So it's just wild, man. And more and more things happen every day that there can be a big sense of FOMO. I'm in some of these WhatsApp groups I often tell you about, and there's some WhatsApp groups where there are people just getting on with things, and it can be silent, and there's always someone sharing something interesting. They're doers. Other groups where it's like people just sharing news and a little bit of opinion, and you're like, just chatting, and it's like, no, let's build, let's actually get things done, and I know I'm just sort of in my corner building that, like all these other people over here are, and that's the fun thing. Like, it doesn't matter what this security layer came out, and have you considered, nah man, let's just bloody build, like that's it.
Yes, 100%. 100%.
Okay, 2 asset generations failed. I wonder why, but so we might have some missing links.
I've got a good guess. It's probably due to the alcohol bit. You remember when he said in the transcript?
Potentially. So by the way, in that process, that generated assets, it did all the cutting, slicing, everything. So now it should be ready for us. So we'll open up Remotion. It should just be there for us. Let's see.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So by the way, when it plays for the first time, you see a little bit of black screen on each step because it's loading the image from the database. So just bear that in mind. It's not part of the edit. It will flow seamlessly. It's just that because it's getting from the database, it can take a split second for the image to load. But let's see.
The moment your parents drive away, not dramatically, something shifts. No music swells, nothing changes visually. No music swells, the corridor looks the same. Your room looks the same. But you are now entirely responsible for whether you eat today, whether you sleep, whether you show up, whether you sleep. Nobody is going to remind you. For most 18-year-olds, this is the first time in their lives that's ever been true. And the thing is, you have no idea how unprepared you actually are because you've never had to find out. The first week is a performance you're putting on for everyone, including yourself. You go to every social event. You tell people your name and your course and where you're from approximately 40 times. You eat cereal for dinner and call it fine. You stay up until 2 a.m. talking to people you'll never speak to again because the alternative is lying in a room alone, thinking about.
So skip it along. Oh, I'm skipping it, but just to get to the images. But bear in mind that the captions will be off because the scrubbing is terrible with Remotion. Here, come back in here.
A letter from the university about your fees, and you genuinely cannot tell if it's urgent or routine. So you put it on the desk and look at it for 4 days. Cooking means pasta with whatever's in the cupboard, and the cupboard is already depleted because you bought the wrong things in week 1. This isn't laziness. It's a skill gap that no one warned you about. Research tracking teenage independence found that modern young people are logging more screen time and less unstructured real-world problem solving than any previous generation. University doesn't ease you in. It just assumes you already know things that statistically you've never had to learn. Now here's the version of this story that the Freshers Week brochure completely ignores. In 2021 and 2022, 52% of students applying for financial aid in the U.S. were classified as independent, meaning no parental support, financially or otherwise. 42% were over 24. Half of those independents were parents themselves. These aren't students learning to do laundry. These are people working 22 hours a week while also attending lectures and,
and in many cases, picking up a child from daycare afterward. For students of color, independent status is even more common. The image of university independence as an 18-year-old finding themselves is genuinely only true for about half the people in the building. The other half already knew who they were. They just needed the degree. Somewhere between month 2 and month 4, something clicks. Not all at once, gradually, and mostly through getting things wrong. You learn to budget because you run out of money on the 15th and have to figure it out. You learn to cook 3 things properly because eating badly for long enough becomes its own motivation. You learn to manage your time because missing one deadline and suffering the consequences teaches you more than any planner ever could. The stuff you actually absorb at university isn't really on the syllabus. It's the slow, uncomfortable process of discovering that you're more capable than you thought, and also that asking for help doesn't undo that. The person who finishes their first year is genuinely different from the one.
Missed ones. So I'd probably put in like some sort of feedback loop there if it misses images to go back and rewire and try to create it. Yeah, so I think all these last.
I think it's waiting for the end, mate. That's insane for.
Crazy. Yeah. This is one that I made as well earlier.
A guy goes broke, hits the gym 6 days a week for 6 months, doing the same lifts in the same order, and comes out the other side a millionaire with the most muscular legs anyone around him had ever seen. Not because of some revelation, not because of a mentor or a master class, because he was relentlessly, almost pathologically boring. James Clear, who has sold over 15 million copies of Atomic Habits, put it plainly, the only way to become excellent is to be endlessly fascinated by doing the same thing over and over. You have to fall in love with boredom. Most people hear that and keep scrolling. The ones who actually absorb it tend to change their lives. Here are the boring habits that do it. Cardiac surgeon Dr. Jeremy London wakes up at 4 a.m. every day without an alarm. Not a 4 a.m. hustle flex. He genuinely woke up enough time.
That's a whole 6-minute video. So
that's really cool.
Yeah.
I liked at the start how quick they went into those little snippets on that James Clear one, Atomic Habits.
Yeah, the cuts are supposed to be like, this was just so clean, like even the character consistency. And so the good thing is again, like, I go through this pipeline and this is, again, putting everything you're seeing put together is in terms of like days worked, maybe like a day and a half, to get to this point. So now it's like, okay, now is all the refinements, so how do we, and again, I don't want to like completely lose myself and then not publish something. But for example, some of the captions, it misses a couple of words and I need to just figure out why it's doing that. Definitely want to think about how we get it to, not hold on some scenes for so long. But yeah, man, the structure is there now, which is what you want to get, is a system like this that works and runs end to end. And now you can start diving in. So you can see now I had that and I was like, okay, now let me try the multi-explainer workflow. And this is what I just started doing, a couple of hours ago, which was, let's create these explainer type of videos, because now that we've got a general structure of any type of video that we can create, we can now start driving down into, and slowly we'll get into maybe shorts version, reels version, different types of videos, children narrations and colorful stuff for them to do as well. So, it's just a consistent and constant, iteration process. But yeah, man.
Do you know what's, do you know what you can do? So I discovered this the other day because I never really used Manus before, Manus AI, but Manus AI actually auto-transcripts videos you send it. So all you do is just copy the YouTube video into it and then it auto-transcribes it for you, rather than like on Claude, you'd have to go into a YouTube transcriber, like a external tool, get the transcription, copy and paste the HTML text into Claude itself. But the process what I'm going through here is, whether it's Manus or whether it's that process you do, you create a Claude skill which analyzes those videos that you show, those 10 reference videos, or other videos that you like the look of, and you reference, okay, what's a perfect hook? What's a perfect like time duration for each clip at the first like 10, 13 second stage to keep people hooked into that concept, and then what's like the time patterns you need to consistently have going through that video where typically drop off periods have. So you just use a data metrics of like what's consistently going on. You build a Claude skill for that, and then you embed that into your Claude code style. So when you're building out that process, it's going like that reference bit where it builds up the text and the images and stuff. It's doing it to the same degree, which is it knows the backlog data in its head, the Claude skills, suggesting here's what should be built on those patterns.
Interesting. Okay. Oh, and that's built into So have you played with that yet?
Yeah. So I'm like, so this is interesting. So I had a conversation with my friend yesterday. First time I caught him in ages. He's the one that actually got me into the online space. So all the credit goes to him for like most of this stuff. But he was saying to me, why have you not used Claudebot? And I was like, well, because all the questions I'd asked Claudebot are the same questions I'd have asked 6 months ago to AI when like we were just playing with AI, right? Like I think everyone's using Claudebot for typical reasons of like stressing a question they don't really need to find the answer for, but it's like finding an excuse to kind of use it in a sense. And I said to him, the reason why I was using Manus was I was like, well, it's like a personal fitness program. Like, what supplements can I then have? Like things I don't really need to know the answer for, but I wanted to see like I can stress test it.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, well, I want you to build me a personal gym plan based upon these 3 influencers, these gym influencers, for example, and just go through their YouTube videos, the last 10 YouTube videos. What are the key points they talk about, like time duration under stress, all the different like supplements they have, what are the routines they're typically using at this minute in time that's changed from when they were doing it in 2015 or 2016 with the videos, because they're long-term YouTubers. And it was plucking all that information for me. And I was like, oh, this is perfect. So all I did was then copy and paste that from Manus to Claude to create a Claude skill that could then fill out that information for me. But it's it's because the old way I used to do things was, I think we all did it, and probably a lot of us still do it, which is go and create me a sales script based upon the best salesperson in the world, and then you go and reference the best salesperson in the world, right? When actually, like, you're giving it complete chance. It's like kicking the football up in the air in a game of football. It's like 50% chance of who's going to get the ball back. Whereas giving it the actual steer and direction towards who those people are with their names, and also referencing it with those video collections that you've either watched beforehand or you just know that they're a relevant YouTuber or a relevant person when it comes to context, and then giving it all that data sets, you then at least have some autonomy when you get the feedback back and you're like, that doesn't sound like them. Well, it doesn't look like their routines that I've watched videos for. At least I can then kind of go back to and go, you're making this up. Like, have another go kind of thing. Like, this is kind of what I should expect. Here's the variation of what I think should work.
Yeah, that data set is important, man. Like creating, and there's so many levels of that. Like you're saying, there's engagement level, watch time. There's so many. It's like a science, isn't it, in itself? I mean, that's why Mr. Beast is who he is, because he sat there and really, understood this stuff to a T, and then built around that. But yeah, no, to figure out how AI can do that will be interesting. Now it's like this is all. I think like last week's video was almost. Sort of they're having that aha moment in real time, and this week we're turning that aha into voila, and then next week, if we manage to get a video, hopefully we can get from voila to yeehaw. And actually see if we actually manage to get any views. I'm going to try and publish and create some sort of channel. But I am like, in the back of my mind as well, almost like don't want anyone to know that I'm behind the channel. So
that's right.
I kind of just want to do it completely. Like I'm going to try. What I'm going to do is, I'm just going to experiment, because I have no idea how the stuff's going to work, which is also really cool about just building in public and showing as you're doing it. So yeah, we'll see, man. We'll just throw some stuff out, just let it run. But yeah, honestly, this could be a full-time thing in itself, just spending all your time generating assets and videos and different styles. And again, like, any one of these steps that I showed in that process, you can, expand that out. So, in between, before any of this happens, you could have a whole style section where you're, have all these preset styles. This, CGI style is one. We could have that, style that you just showed me just now as another one, and whatever else. You have so many different variations of styles. And so that, again, the rest of the pipeline just works the same. It's just the style changes in the prompt. That's all it is. And all of a sudden you have a different type of video. You could have a Coco Melon type of experience. Those type of things are so fascinating, man. Is the kids space and kids YouTube, I find just, so compelling in itself. But yeah, man, it's
that audience alone, though, is what's really great about the children's YouTube spaces. because children typically don't have control over the remote, videos just carry on looping and looping and looping and looping. So like you click on one and all of a sudden you've watched 9 of them. Like whether they've actually watched 9 of them or not, it's like they can't turn it off. So if your YouTube channel has plenty of videos, there's a good chance that you're going to get a view per video just because naturally it's going to be on in the background. It's going to do things. And kids also like the ones recently where it's those 6 or 8 boxes where it's like an image and the name, image, name, and they have to like talk about them, right? You've seen them, right? Like they are the low level, the worst quality ever. But the reason why they're cool is because you get children shouting in the living room the answers to the boxes.
Is there the one that goes like ball, cup, ball, cup? Yeah. They do that with letters. It's like X, and it goes level 5, and it's like X, X, like, just. And they're just like playing a game, and the crazy thing is they dial it back, so it's almost like they're rewatching, which is so good for like reverse engineering the YouTube algorithm. And by the way, another point, just while we end this, is what I found in this process is, I don't want to say how terrible in like the most extreme way, but AI is very terrible creatively, and again, it's a predictive algorithm, and so if I'm saying it so many times, I've said to it, give me an example of this, or, what type of idea should I start with? Like the type of ideas a human like you would give about the universe is something it would never come out with, you know? Just the nuance and the creativity and the use cases of the real life world is such an important part of your layer, and like adding that to the experience of what you're building, and then curating from that, understanding, okay, what things is AI phenomenal at, being able to help me tie it together, build APIs, build systems, whatever else. But then where can I use my brain, and orchestrate this? And we've spoken about this from the beginning of our videos, and it still remains true. Like you are the architect, and then inside of that, you have, then what you do is you give it to Claude and you say, okay, well, this is the idea. You start chatting about it, and then, okay, now go into plan mode. Let it then plan the architecture. That's where it becomes the architect, but the seed is planted from you, and you don't want to sort of like, and I think, again, these like automated agents at the moment come from a place of almost being like, hey, just do it for me, as an example. And you're just expecting the entire thing. But again, a day and a half, 2-3 days worth of work, of putting together something that is meaningful, both as an independent project that can become something that you can dial into, or something that you productize in itself, or building it and then sharing it on YouTube, and this being an outlet for it. Like, there's so much juice that can come from just being in there yourself, and you're still creating agents. You're still going to do this type of stuff, but your automatic agent is not going to go off and create this output for you right now. And I think it just, just reaffirms the importance of really, really, really trying to understand these tools, get excited about it, get building, and then become smarter and smarter about the ways you can use it. And then you'll stitch it together in such interesting ways, man. A very small example is, I would even say in the last month, 4 different, very tangible outputs, outcomes that have happened for me, where that aren't related to my social media, my YouTube, or anything like that, where either people I've just spoken to in general conversations, or someone's made an introduction and gone for a random coffee, like just started off very, very chill. And then when the conversation goes into AI, or they're curious about it, because that tends to be the topic of any conversation nowadays, as soon as I add my perspective to it, it becomes such a valuable conversation for the other person, because I'm coming from a level of architectural understanding, building, doing, and then the use case of things I've done now, whether it's email flows we built recently, like the email flow system, just that was a conversational element in for a very brief chat I had with someone 2 weeks ago, that by the end of that week turned into a very lucrative business outcome, and it was just that me just knowing how to do these things could just add a level of, depth to conversation, which then you might be sitting in front of someone that's like, hey, what if I did that for myself? What might that look like? And there's been many, many versions of that. So we had the email system was one example of that. Directory system was another example of that. Training is another example of that recently. One of the probably the biggest company in the world, saying, hey, can you come and train our team up on how to do this type of stuff? Which is like, those things never happen. But it's like, oh, you're doing this over here, and I'm already teaching people how to use AI. That can be transferable. So there's so many transferable skills within these pockets, that turn out into their individual sort of like, opportunities. And I think that's also such exciting time such an exciting incentive for you to just be learning and building and doing these things. And obviously people get a lot of that excitement from us just by sharing this. But it's the YouTube recordings, the videos we do, these are like just the most raw format of us sharing this. But they're, often people are probably watching this and thinking to themselves, okay, well, how do I turn this into something? What does it become? How do I make money? Whatever else. And I think all of that is a byproduct of you learning and building. Totally. If you then understand, and Ollie, again, coming back to how we even connect is a great example of that too. You being aware and curious about space is, one huge factor for us being able to communicate and make something of it. But beyond that is then you adding in your flair, your communication style, how to conversate, how to get someone's attention, how to negotiate. All these things play a part in the overall process. And so again, real world, your character, who you are, your nuance, your architecture, like use your mind and your everything that you have about you in the right way, learn to use these tools. And I think both of those combined, we're seeing in so many ways become like just a unstoppable force, man. And you become an unstoppable force.
100%.
So yeah, if there's anything anyone takes away from this, I think is that.
The one thing, if anyone takes anything away from it, is when you said earlier, AI is like you cannot lean on it for creativity, and it's so true. Like a perfect example you just said there is when I first reached out to you, I had a very similar interaction on Thursday last week where I was just scrolling through X and I found someone's content that I've like watched them for ages, saw a few different bits and bobs, and immediately my thought process was there's a few things I can tweak with that one post that they put out there that would make their content 10 times better. So I just shot my DM, and it was the sense of the DM was literally like not calling them out, but just saying like, listen, I love what you do, but here's 3 things that just works 10 times better that will make things work. And it's the value proposition of just like, if you fed that idea into ChatGPT or Claude, as most people do when they send out emails or text messages, which is just beyond me. I don't know why people still do that for outreach. You would get the fluffiest message in the world, which would be like, you're so incredible, everything you do is amazing, I think there's some things you could tweak here, da, 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 da. But just by being your own creative mind, just like leading with your actual emotion of what you think works, grab someone's attention, and then it can bring some sort of long-lasting effect that comes with it. There's just Claude Code partner with, or they've now got that Figma extension the other day, and I remember sending it to you, and I was like, oh, this could be really cool. And your first message back was like the epiphany for you, just go like, yeah, like you're right. And your message was literally like, yeah, it's great, but like, I can design in Claude Code anyway. And it's like, yeah, that's true, but it's like Claude Code didn't not enable you to design. It's the years of experience, but it's too like you know what you want from it. Like you have a creative mind, you have a creative nature. You're like, I figured out a way, you figured out a way. No one like made a YouTube video to teach you saying this is how you should go and do designing you now coincidentally go and do it for everyone else to make those YouTube videos. But there was no process where you were like, all right, I'm just going to watch this 30-minute video and I'm going to go step by step, I'm going to go and do it myself. You're like, I'll just play around with it for a period of time where it's uncomfortable enough where I'm just like, if after 5 days it's great, then cool, we've got something here. If after 5 days it's not worked, okay, cool, put it down for a bit, and then I'll come back to it later on when I think it's ready to go and do so. But it only came from you just going, how can I try and juggle this thing and try and make it work myself?
Absolutely. And you have to, I think that's why being introspective, and to your point of understanding where you fit in as a human is very important, because there are there can be at different parts of the cycle. Like what you just explained is, well, you're doing a lot of work with AI, framing, research, curiosities, but then the actual outreach part of it has to be the human touch, and then a reverse example is sort of what we're doing here, which is, the architecture, the design, the building is the creativity is a human kind of architecture, and then AI is doing the rest of it to the point of like hopefully programmatically generating things and generating revenue, and so you have to figure out, okay, where do I leverage these things and how do I leverage them? But it comes back to, that TED talk I did, which was all about just, knowing what's in your toolkit. And that's just so important. Like you have to know what's in your toolkit, build that toolkit up every day. And then, life, someone explained to me before as well, life is a series of opportunities like moving cars, just constantly moving in front of you. At any point, you have to be able to just grab one. It's always that. There's constant moments of that, but you're only able to identify and grab those if you also understand and can sniff out where you add value to something and it makes sense, and you have to be confident about that. And you only get confident about that by building that toolkit and, your persona, your character, all of these things. And then, man, all these opportunities that are going by become we're sitting around now, it's almost too much to execute, but then there's some people
definitely.
who are just trying to figure out that one thing, amount of times I hear from, just all sorts of types of people that we know when you have a check-in or, it's, I've been meaning to open up Claude Code. You know what, I'm going to do it. You know what, I've got some time off now. I'm going to dial into it. Okay, now I'm going to do it. And you're like, man, just do it. Just open it. Because in that time, you don't understand how far ahead people are getting. There is no, and guess what? It doesn't matter. When I hear that, I might hear the same person saying it to me for 6 months now. It doesn't make a difference to me. I'm doing it. You're doing it. People who are actually getting active and in these things, it's fine. It's only gonna, set you behind if you don't, because you're not getting equipped, and there's more and more opportunities and quote unquote cars that are just driving by, and you have no idea that had you spent 3 days looking at something, there's about 10 opportunities there you could have, struck upon,
Just to tie it up, I don't want to get deep with the whole process, but I would say the last 4 months, I was looking at everything, consuming so much, and thinking to myself, could go explore this, could go and build this. That'd be really cool. That'd be a really cool business model. Maybe I can go and do this later tonight, kind of stuff. And it's not really until, and I know it sounds really typical to say, but this is just as simple as it is. And half the time, all these things are just very simple. It's not until you just pull up your laptop and you just open up Claude Code for the first time and start building, you realise, it's pretty possible. it's pretty, I still have friends now, and I'm because I've only just come out that space of just going, what if, rather than now just do it kind of stuff. When they say to me, I've had this idea kind of things. And it's not trying to be brutal with people. It's just saying it for what it is. It's just try it, because
and you have to feel that feeling. Yeah,
totally. But you reference it all the time, which is if you spend a day and a half on building something, the cost time acquisition is tiny compared to what you would have lost 6, 7, 10 months ago kind of thing, where actually 6, 7 months ago, 10 months ago, 11 months ago kind of stuff, where everything just took forever to you have to send off some of this work to some team, that team would then have to look at it, come back to you, and you're like, I don't even like it in the first place. It was just a rough thought I had on a Wednesday evening kind of thing.
And imagine how overwhelming it seems if in the process of you deciding to just install Claude Code with one line, you can just open your terminal that everyone has access to. In that time, so many things that happen that you're constantly seeing and get overwhelmed by. Then all of a sudden, open Claude agents, and then it can just feel like you yourself mentally feel like, I'm never going to start, because now there's a new thing. But that's more reason to just start getting into it, start, lubricating your mind and your ideas. And then, you can then figure out how phased you are by certain things. We spoke about on a very early version of our podcast, owning your own perspective, and having a perspective, which is so important, when it is so generalized, and it is, the algorithms and everything is designed for you to be able to capture people's attention and to rope them in, but amongst all of that noise, one of the most unique things that we all have access to is our own perspective. What do you really feel? It doesn't matter if it's contrarian and no one else believes it. Often those ideas and things end up being the ones that win, because there's a gap in the door that you've been able to see that no one else has. And again, not knowing when not to be stubborn and when to be stubborn. Again, it's a very, careful dance, so to speak. But I think important, you only get that by doing and building and being in the arena, So,
totally.
Yeah,
all these other tools though that we look at, we romanticize over. We like the idea of for example, if they did a Spotify rap but for free pick, I'm probably a free pick rack 0.001% user, right? But then when I look at it, I'm like, it's just built on code. The whole thing was once built in the same way that I'm now building now. So it's everything is again, when we on these calls, I always think to myself, we say things, we're just life's easy, crack on kind of stuff. But it's there is a real reality here where the things that you look at, whether it's Spotify, I want to go make the next Spotify. Yes, away from building, there's a huge element of what they had to go and do from the marketing, the initiatives to try and convince people to actually use their platform. That's a whole different thing in itself. But to build a tool that's actually attractive enough to get users to jump on and stay on, they're all built in the same process. And it's now become 10 times easier to do that because it's now native language speaking to it, and then it goes and does the code. Whereas before, it was just code on code.
Yes. No, and you can start small and build on top of it. I absolutely go to Spotify now, and it's just, oh, man, I love these type of things. Again, this is another example of something where, I didn't know what we were going to shoot today, what we were going to record. We never know. Just jump into it.
We just don't. We've got no clue, everyone.
Yeah, we have no clue. We're just doing stuff and just screen sharing.
No clue coding. That's what we're doing.
No clue coding. That's a great brand name. No clue. No idea.
Get the domain. Let's get the domain. There you go. That's next week's video. I've made a directory for you.
Yeah, dumbai.com. Dummies.
We're gonna have to. There's too many. We can probably list off right now.
I know. Good stuff. Thank you, Ollie. That's a good episode.
No, I
man.
appreciate your time as always, dude. It's very pleasurable. It's good to see what you've built as well. It's really cool.
Thank you, man. We'll see how it develops now, man. I've been holding you off showing you as well because sometimes I'm building things. I can't show Ollie yet. It's as much as I'm just sitting there being like, this would be so cool. I'm gonna give you the proper experience like this.
I love it. I appreciate it too.
Good stuff. Amazing, man. Catch you soon.
See you later.
Clap, clap, clap. We're done just right. 5-day sprint took us to new heights. Make it